Now,
There we
go
go.
ahead.
We good to go? Okay. Welcome, and thank you all for being here at the State Center Community College District Area 6 Trustee Debate, sponsored by the Clovis Community College Associated Student Government. My name is Cole Hesberg, and I'm a senator in the Associated Student Government. Today, I will be hosting but not moderating today's debate. I'd like to start off by thanking all of our candidates for being here and being willing to share their time with us this afternoon. I'd also like to extend that thanks to our moderators who will introduce themselves shortly. Before we get started, here are the rules and procedures for today's debate. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to introduce themselves and give an opening statement. From there, each of our moderators will ask 3 questions each, 9 questions in total, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to that question, to each question. If a candidate is mentioned in another's response, they'll have 1 minute to respond to that mention. From there, audience members will have the opportunity to ask questions via chat or via video. And again, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. If a candidate is mentioned, they'll have 1 minute to respond to that mention. Lastly, each candidate will be given 3 minutes for a closing message. When asked a question, the order for replies will follow alphabetical order. The order will start with Sally Fowler and end with Deborah Ikeda, unless Chris Milton ends up attending today's debate. And in that case, he'll be the last one in the list of replies. For candidates and audience members who would like to check how much time a particular candidate has left, please look at the countdown timer on Patrick Stump's screen. Now, without further ado, our first candidates will introduce themselves and provide their opening statements. Sally, you have the first introduction.
Okay, thank you very much. So I've been in education for over 38 years. I've been both a teacher, a guidance learning director. I've been a school site principal. I've worked at the district office. I was Fresno Adult Schools principal for several years, working with our adult populations, helping them transition to college. About 65% of all of our students were parents within that district. So I worked on behalf of the parents and also on behalf of their students. My last 8 years with the district, I was their executive officer of guidance of college and career readiness. I'm a little nervous. I oversaw all of their CTE programs, aligning our pathways with our community colleges for certification, licensure, and for AA and AS degree completion. I oversaw all of our guidance and counseling. Our counselors trained every high school counselor on the Valley floor in how to complete the FAFSA. I was responsible for summer school and after school programs and connecting them with both academics and with CTE. I built buildings, we increased our pathways, we wrote for state and federal grants. I was responsible for multi-million-dollar budgets and decisions that were associated with that, along with presenting and earning the trust of our community partners and our community. I believe that I have the right experience and I'm a good choice for this particular office. I'm guided by meaningful collaboration where my constituent groups have the opportunity to participate and provide input so I can make the best possible decisions on behalf of our students and our community. I believe equity is prioritized through budget decisions and through decisions that we make as trustees, and that we earn our trust through those decisions. And I believe that accountability is important, not only at the trustee and chancellor level, but also in collaboration with our college presidents so that we provide the best possible education within our community. I am a strong believer in the power of the question, so I'm excited about today and the opportunity to interact with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sally. Deborah, you have the next opening statement.
Thank you very much to the ASG for hosting this today. As the founding president of Clovis Community College with over 43 years of experience in higher education, community college education specifically, and the current trustee incumbent, I had the experience necessary to meet the challenges facing us today. When we first opened Clovis Community College at its current location in 2007, we needed to make a statement about what kind of college we wanted for our students. And we came up with a statement that reflected our beliefs as a college community. And that statement was, and you'll recognize this, creating opportunities one student at a time, because we do believe in everyone's ability to succeed if we provided the right tools to assist you. And I believe that even more strongly today. I was hired as the first Vice President of Instruction and Student Services for Clovis Community College Center, or back then it was called Willow International, in 2005, and then became the founding president of Clovis Community College in 2012. I led the college community to our first initial accreditation in 2015, which made us Clovis Community College, the 113th public community college in the state. And no one person does anything like this alone, but the entire community college had to believe in this goal, and we worked together towards it as a group. Everyone did whatever needed to be done to help us become a college, and we worked together as one team: students, classified professionals, faculty, and administrators. I had a great team and loved working at this college, so when I retired, I decided to give back and run for trustee of this area. I wish to continue giving back to you as an elected trustee because my work is not yet complete. Our district citizens passed Measure C, providing funds for new facilities, but we have to continue working to ensure our district moves forward and keeps its promises. When Governor Newsom removed the project to build the new Career Technology Center at Clovis Community College, I reached out to our local legislators to help change the governor's mind. I was part of the statewide trustee group that developed a campaign to get all of our previously approved community college building projects back on the list to be approved by the governor. As a result, our district will receive state matching funds to build a new Career Technology Center here at Clovis Community College. And there will be money left over to build a second large building and a smaller one on our campus, because Clovis is continuing to build their enrollment. I also serve on the national level as an elected trustee to the Association of Community College Trustees, which is our national trustee association, on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I was elected by my peers from throughout the nation to serve on this national committee of 10 elected trustees. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I see Chris still hasn't joined us, so that'll end our opening statements for the candidates. So thank you, candidates. Now will the three moderators please introduce themselves? Starting with Sydney, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Sydney Ballard and I'm a peer writing tutor at the Clovis Community College Tutorial Center.
Thank you, Sydney. Elijah, you're next.
Hello everyone, my name is Elisha Banda. I am a current student ambassador for Clovis Community, as well as a previous associated student government president for ASG.
Thank you, Elijah. Lastly, Diana.
Hello everyone, my name is Diana Flores. I am the current student trustee that sits on the board.
Thank you, moderators. Now the first portion of our debate will begin with the moderators asking questions. And the first question goes to Sydney.
And Cole, just before you begin, just have a quick update on Chris. Let me read what he sent us. He deeply apologizes for not being able to attend today's debate. Unfortunately, due to a family emergency, he is unable to attend because he is en route. He was supposed to be on a plane, and that plane was delayed, and now he's on the plane and not going to be able to join us. So if it does land and he's able to connect via a connection, I will keep you guys updated.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Sydney, you have the first question.
Thank you, Cole. My first question is, a lot of students are unaware of what the Board of Trustees' role is in regard to how decisions you make impact the typical student experience. Especially among required online instruction, students are often out of the loop regarding campus activities and potential opportunities for engagement. How do you plan on staying connected with students and aware of the typical students' wants and needs amid the pandemic and after we return to online or regular instruction?
think I go first.
Yes, Sally, you have the first question. I'm sorry.
Sure. Okay, so one of the ways that I have always interacted with our students is through that open door policy. During a pandemic, obviously that's not possible, but it is possible to hold regular forums in which students can either submit questions in advance, and I would answer those questions then online, or in writing. My hope would be that those kinds of forums would be posted in ways in which students would find accessibility for them. After the pandemic, my hope would be that I would have access to students on a regular basis, working with our college president and with our student government to be able to sit face-to-face with students and answer their questions, whether it be that they developed them in advance or whether we meet and they develop those questions on the fly. I think that it's important that students have a voice in how their college is run and the decisions that are made for them and the impacts that those decisions have upon them. Quite often, students don't truly understand the role of a trustee and how they can interact with college leadership, both at the state center level and also at their own college level. Students quite often are not on campus long enough to be able to get answers, so I would like to be able to use a forum in which they could submit questions and then answers are posted for them. Sometimes those questions could be answered by me, and sometimes they could be answered by student government, and sometimes they could be answered by the college administration. I think that students not having access to individuals to get answers to their questions is problematic for them and helps them, causes them to feel isolated. So I would hope that open forums would be a good way for them to do that, especially during these pandemic times where they can't put things out face-to-face. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Deborah, you have the next response.
When I became trustee, I had to be careful because I was just the immediate past president of Clovis Community College, and I needed to give President Bennett room to establish her own identity with the college campus. As a result, I really tried to stay away from the campus unless I was invited, either by the ASG or by the Academic Senate or whoever. As the ASG, you have representatives to our board of trustees through your student trustee. So if you have issues, you need to take them through your ASG president to the student trustee, who then brings it to the board. Now that I've been gone for 4 years and Dr. Bennett has firmly established herself as the president of Clovis Community College, I would feel very comfortable. Of course, this would be in agreement with Dr. Bennett, to have Zoom chats with students to see what their issues are. I'd be very curious. In fact, I'm going to use today's forum to find out from you folks how online learning was going and what issues are you facing and what kind of help do you need that you believe you're not currently getting at the college. Because I believe the college is making every effort to meet your needs, but if they're not aware of those needs, then they need to be made aware of them. And I'm hopeful that ASG is reaching out to the student body to get those kinds of questions answered. I know you're still having ASG meetings. I guess my question to you folks would be, are you reaching out to students through open forums? And I think you are. I believe Dr. Bennett in forums for students as well to see if they're, or actually to the entire college community, to answer questions and to let them know what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. The next question goes to Elijah.
Thank you, Cole. Over the past few months, we've witnessed a renewed struggle for justice and equity for underrepresented and marginalized populations in this country. As a trustee, how will you ensure that the Board of Trustees and the campus community are being equity-minded in all actions they take?
Sally, you have the first response.
You know, and sitting and watching, observing our trustee meetings, there isn't a lot of opportunity for student voice at those meetings. So if we're not reaching out to our student populations on our individual campuses or on all of our campuses, students need to be able to bring forward their questions in a way that is accessible. It's difficult in these online meetings for people to present information. There's all kinds of timelines and structures involved. I would hope that our ASG would be helping to train students on how they can get their voice out in front of our community college trustees. These are difficult times. The pandemic has the potential to have generational consequences. It has probably affected our students that are from lower socioeconomic areas the greatest, women and students of color. It has marginalized those students and prevented them from having access to voice. The best way to get their voice in play is through the individual colleges and to have those questions brought forward. But until we actually have a way for students to access our trustees on a regular basis and to put those questions out in a public forum, then they will not ever truly have voice. So it's important for us as trustees to figure out how we can better allow for access to our meetings and set aside time for them to have some way to present those questions and voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Deborah, the next response is yours.
In February 2020, the State Chancellor, Eloy Ortiz Oakley, passed the Chancellor's Office Vision for Success, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And it was really a call to action for all of us trustees to develop implementation ideas to increase diversity in our curriculum and inclusion, to increase diversity within our staff ranks, our faculty ranks. And as a result, I chair a trustee work group number 1, that is working on developing strategies to increase representation on our screening committees. And part of that is to have students serve in that role. Now, there's a number of issues that come up with there. One is it's hard for students to break away from class for long periods of time. So some of the ideas we came up with and are going to be proposing is to videotape all the teaching demonstrations, have a group of students then view those teaching demonstrations and give back feedback to the screening committees on how they felt the particular teachers were doing. Another idea was to have students serve on different parts of the screening committee process, maybe to look at the job announcement and get their feedback that way. So there are a number of ways to get more student voice in the process of diversifying our community college staff ranks, faculty ranks, administrative ranks. And as I indicated, we'll be presenting these ideas by December of this year, and implementation will come out in January through June of the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah and Sally, for your responses. Next question goes to Diana.
Currently, the majority of California community college trustees do not have the right to make a motion or second. What is your stance on student trustees gaining the right to make and second motions and gain an advisory vote?
Sally, the first response is yours.
So with only one trustee representing our entire State Center Community College District, if that trustee has a process, student trustee has a process to gain information from their other campuses and other ASG government representatives, then that individual should have a voice and a vote. To have only one student representative for the numerous students that we have within our college system, doesn't make sense for them to be a non-participating individual. So my vote, if I was elected trustee, would be to encourage other trustees to allow for student input and student voice within that, and allow for our student representative, being that there is only one, and that student representative only has a tenure of 1 year, for them to be able to have a voice and a vote. Thank you.
Thank you for your response, Sally. Deborah, you have the next one.
I would just echo that. I know Stephen Cordor, our former student trustee for State Center, is now the statewide ASG president, and that is one of their biggest issues that they're trying to promote, and I do support that. I think it's important to have student voice, so I would support that.
Thank you for your responses. Sydney, next question is yours.
Thank you. My question is, how will you prioritize funding programs at Clovis Community College?
Sally, you have the first response.
So funding priorities should be set forth through voice. So to start with, you have a college president who actually is doing a fabulous job. She actually does take the time to gain voice and input before making any kind of decision. But those decisions are never made in isolation. So decisions that are made to prioritize funding and how funding is spent on that campus should be both through student voice, through faculty voice, and through the community partners that are supporting the programs that you have on your campus. Through that, then you can make an educated decision as to what those priorities should be. Obviously, you have some deadlines and some funding ramifications that are set forth through state and federal funding that on how funding has to be spent. But that's how you educate your constituencies and your student populations and your faculty and business partners into how funding has to be spent, in ways it can be spent, and then gain their input as to what they feel should be the priorities, and then educated decisions should be made from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Deborah, your response is next.
My role as a board member is really to look at the recommendations that are made by the individual college president and chancellor regarding budget. The whole budgeting process that takes place on the campus, and I assume it hasn't changed that much, is very inclusive. You get feedback from all the departments, from all the faculty, from all the students via their ASG representatives to the body at Clovis Community College in charge of governance. And it's really that body that makes funding decisions and feeds them and funnels them up through the president. It's not my role as a board member to line item budget items at the college campus. I don't have the individual knowledge anymore to make those types of decisions. That's why they happen at the campus. I support the recommendations made by the campus because you are the people who know best what your needs are. And so when those budget ideas and recommendations come up through the cabinet to the board of trustees, we ask questions if we have questions about the budget. We discuss the budgeting process that ensure that it's inclusive, and then we either approve or disapprove them. But to date, our board has been very supportive of what the budget recommendations have been to the campus. And we are fiscally conservative district, so we have ensured that we have a good reserve, so we have not had to lay off any faculty or staff during these tough budget times, unlike some of our neighbors that have laid off over 100 faculty at one campus that I won't name. So I would continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for your responses. Next question goes to Elijah.
As a public education institution that has faced issues with public transportation previously, how are you willing to offer assistance in dealing with these concerns?
I think transportation continues to be an issue to the Clovis Community College campus, and the cost of transportation continues to be an issue for our students. So when you don't have public transportation that runs long enough for students to be able to get back home, or transportation that is limited in accessibility, it causes problems all the way around. So I realize that as the campus grows, the need for transportation will also grow. When I have worked with the transit system, their discussions with us have always been about, we will build it and we will increase it as the need increases. And as Clovis Community College has drastically increased the number of students that are attending that college, the need for public transportation is also increasing. And the breadth of that transportation needs to increase along with it. It does require the colleges to negotiate with public transportation as where those stops are and where those stops can pick up and when it drops off at Clovis Community College. So those discussions will need to continue. I strongly support public transportation and believe that it is an accessibility issue for some of our students. Not all students have their own transportation to drive out there. The district's plan to sell the Herndon campus will necessitate additional transportation, obviously, out to the Clovis Community College as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Your response is next, Deborah.
Oh, goodness, this has been a huge issue for me. When I was the college president, when we first opened our campus, I was able to get a bus out to our campus on a regular basis. It came at least once an hour. And then when the budget went south in 2009, we lost that bus service. And ever since then, I've been trying to get it back. Both as college president and then as trustee, I've been advocating on behalf of the college to try to get public bus service out to a campus. You have 14,000 students and we can't get a public bus to the campus. You have a high school right across the street with another several thousand students. It just seems obvious to me that the city of Fresno should provide bus service, or the city of Clovis, or both. So what we had to do in the meantime was get a van that would go to the Herndon campus and over here by Woodward Park for students to take a bus to those sites and then catch the van to our campus. So we're meeting the need that way. However, once we sell the property at the Herndon campus, we're going to have to come up with another avenue for students from Clovis to get to our campus rather than having to make several transfers and go to the River Park site. Now, we have used general funds to pay for the drivers for that van service, but the city of Fresno did provide us the vans. So at least that cost was covered, but it's a critical need. And we at least have been able to get free bus passes for students who utilize the bus service. But yes, it's an ongoing need, and I would continue to lobby both the city of Fresno and the city of Clovis to provide public transit to our campus.
Thank you for your response, Deborah. Next question goes to Diana.
While the pandemic is a major issue facing the country, what are some other concerns that you would like to see the board address?
Sally, you have the first response.
One of the issues, I believe, is accessibility, and our board meetings are not recorded. I think it's for 2 weeks. I would like to address the fact that I think we need to be more transparent with our public and provide that accessibility. I think with technology today, we should be able to archive our trustee meetings, and that way they can be referred back to by members of the public, students, and faculty. I believe that the pandemic has really brought forth some equity issues among our students in terms of technology and accessibility. You have a new technology officer, Dr. Forbes, who's now at your district, who moved from your college to the district, who shared with me some major technology issues that your district has faced that also affected Clovis Community College. So addressing issues of email and accessibility and devices and internet all continue to be issues throughout the Fresno community as well. When I think about some of the issues around textbooks and teacher training, providing supports for our teachers to make sure that they have the technology that they need, that they have the support and training that they need. They are the ones dealing with our students on a day-to-day basis. So we would want to provide them with the materials and supplies that they need to make sure that they can interact with their students. I think my time is up, so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you for your response, Sally. Deborah, you have the next response.
Well, closing the achievement gap for our students is one of our primary concerns and will continue to be. And I know the college is continuing to work on that because they're not happy with the results either. So they're continuing to look for ways to close that achievement gap. Some of the other issues are to ensure that we get adequate funding at community colleges. Did you know we are the lowest funded branch of education in the state? We get about $8,300 per student, per equivalent full-time student, whereas the UC gets 32,000 students, the CSU gets 18,000 students, even K-12 gets 12,000 students. So, and we're funded at $8,300. So we need to increase that. The other is our financial aid. Although we have 2/3 of the students in higher education, we only get 10% of the Cal grant funding. That's got to be looked at so that our students will have adequate resources. The other is to ensure we're getting resources to maintain our infrastructure and our instructional equipment. We had a huge cut in instructional equipment funds from the state this year, and that impacted the general fund that the college had to spend, because instructional equipment is critical for our faculty in their teaching and for our students. And we need to continue funding our support services for students, which is critical. We've got a number of student services that are categorical. They need to continue to be funded at the same level, if not higher. And that includes, for example, EOP and S, our DSPS, our CalWork students, just a whole host of categorical funds we get. We need to continue getting those funds. And I guess I'm running out of time too. Okay.
Okay, thank you for your responses, candidates. The next question goes to Sydney.
What will influence your decisions in regard to funding study abroad programs?
Okay, we're going to mix up the speaking order real quick. Debbie, you have the first response this time.
I support study abroad. Of course, now is not the best time to do study abroad, but once it is safe to do so, it's a very broadening experience for our students to study abroad, to go see what another country environment is like, to live in another country. You develop a better understanding of the world. It really broadens your horizon. So I fully support study abroad. My own children benefited greatly from study abroad. One went to, where'd she go? Sweden, and the other one went to England. And wonderful opportunity, because after that they were able to travel to other places that were close by. Traveling in Europe is so much cheaper than traveling here. And so they were really able to see some great historic sites. So I would really encourage students, once it's safe to do so, and we continue our study abroad, that you take full advantage of that, because it is a wonderful opportunity. And it doesn't cost that much more than staying on campus. You may have to save a few dollars, in order to go, but it is well worth the money to do it. You'll have a wonderful experience. I really encourage you to do it.
Thank you, Debbie, for your response. Sally, you have the next one.
I would echo what Debbie has said about study abroad. I think is a wonderful program, but it's often a program that's only available to students of privilege. And I would disagree. It is more costly than if you had stayed at home. However, there are great benefits to it. But if we could provide accessibility for a broader base of students to be able to go, I think that that would be wonderful. But it's one of those opportunities that quite often is missed by students who cannot afford to do that kind of a program. But what that program brings in terms of its benefits is fabulous. And especially for students who want to travel to a country where it is close to their native language and culture that they would not get exposure to otherwise, I think is a huge benefit for them. I think students grow tremendously when they are able to travel and be exposed to other cultures. But I am concerned about study abroad in terms of accessibility for all students when there are required upfront costs. It's one thing to pay for college over a period of time with your cost of living expenses on a monthly basis versus having to pay for things upfront. So those would be my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally, for your response. Diana, you have the final question.
What does the phrase creating opportunity one student at a time mean to you?
You want me to go?
Yes, Deborah, you have the first response.
When we came up with that, the whole point of that statement was to let students know we want every student on our campus to feel comfortable on our campus and to feel like we are family. And we maintain that family closeness among our students. I really felt like students felt comfortable on our campus. In fact, when you came to our campus, if you looked like you didn't know where you were going, a staff member would walk up to you and say, "Do you need any help? Can I help you?" And you will find that's true on our campus, all over our campus. And I believe Dr. Bennett has maintained, even though we've doubled in size, I believe she's maintained that environment on our campus and really continue to promote that opportunity for individual students to help individual students succeed as much as they can. So it's really that closeness, that feeling comfortable on our campus and being made to feel very comfortable, willing to seek out help if you need it. And even if you don't need it, we're going to seek you out if we think you need help and direct you to those resources that we think will benefit you. So it's really a feeling that we wanted to develop on our campus that we did develop when I was there, and I believe has been maintained. You'd have to tell me that. Thank you.
Thank you for your response, Deborah. Sally, you have the final response.
When I interviewed President Bennett, she did talk about that family feeling on her campus and how faculty has worked very hard to maintain that sense of family. To me, that it means that educational is personal and deserves to be personalized, meaning that individuals should have their needs met and have avenues to be able to find resources and access those resources in order to meet their personal needs. But it goes a little bit beyond that, where it is a sense and feeling that all students matter on that campus and what their needs are matter on that campus. And that faculty recognizes that, administration recognizes that, support faculty recognizes that, and everyone works in service of the students one by one on that campus to achieve what that student's hopes and dreams and goals are. So, thank you.
Thank you for your responses, candidates. This concludes the moderator portion of today's debate. Thank you, candidates, for your responses, and thank you, moderators, for your questions. Now the audience portion of today's debate will begin. During this portion of the debate, Audience members will be given the opportunity to ask questions of the candidates. Questions can be submitted through the chat function to our hosts. You will be asked whether or not you would like us to ask the question or whether you would like to ask the question via your video. Questions will be asked of the candidates in the order that they are received from the audience. And we will observe the most recent speaking order with Deborah having the first reply and Sally having the final reply in this portion of today's debate. That being said, the first question from the audience is from Amrita, and she wants to ask the question using her video. Amrita, you have the first question.
Hi, I can't use my video since I'm at work, but my name's Amrita Dami, and I'm currently the Vice President of the Associated Student Government. My question to both of you is, if you are elected, what are 2 to 3 goals that you would like to accomplish?
Deborah, you have the first response.
Well, I think one of the most important goals I want to accomplish is to try to get our diversity, equity, inclusion, implementation strategies adopted by our board once the statewide trustee association develops those. The other is to ensure the campuses have the resources they need to reopen once it's safe to do so. And finally, I want to make sure our students have all the resources they need to be successful working in this online environment. I know it's not been easy for the faculty or the students. So if there are specific issues that haven't been addressed, I'd like to know about them, and I would pass them on to the president who would deal with them. But I think it's important for the board to hear if there's any, particularly if we hear it from a number of different sources that there are particular issues. And that's what I would do.
Thank you, Deborah. Sally, you have the next response.
So my first concern would be around the pandemic, and we have time to plan for when we come back for face-to-face instruction, which would mean that we as a board would need to have a plan on how we're going to receive input from our campuses, and then work with our college presidents to make sure that they are working through their equity and diversity programs to make sure that students have a say into what that face-to-face transition is going to look like. It would be a concern for me that faculty would be included in that to make sure that their needs are met, because that transition is going to require everyone to be on board with what that plan would look like and how we ease into that, because we really don't know what our future will look like. Another area that would be a priority for me would be that currently Clovis Community College probably has the highest student to teacher ratio among our college campuses, and it's probably growing the most rapidly, the fastest. For a college that's only 6 years old to be equal to a college such as Reedley that is like 90, maybe 4 years old, tells me that Clovis will continue to grow, and as such, there needs to be some plans in place for how we address what that ratio looks like. Working with trustees on that board would be the best way to go about doing that. And then lastly, the concern that we make sure that students' needs are being met. So students would need an opportunity to bring forward what those concerns are, and from the college campus up to the boardroom, so that we could then discuss about how we would divide our resources up to better meet those needs. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your response. The next question is from Z.
Hello, my name is Zainab, and I'm the PR coordinator for the ASG. My question for both of you is, as a potential Area 6 trustee, do you have any projects that you would like to bring forward?
Deborah, you have the first response.
Would you repeat that?
Sure, sorry. As a potential Area 6 trustee, do you have any projects that you would like to bring forward?
Sorry, I caught it this time. Okay, one thing I would like to make sure of is that we continue the building projects at Clovis Community College. We are a new campus, and we probably have the fewest facility of any of our campuses, even compared to Madera. They even have a baseball field, and we don't have our softball field. So I'd like to ensure that we continue to get the resources we need at Clovis Community College, our fair share, not more than our fair share, but a fair share of the district resources to meet our campus needs, both for building as well as other resources. For example, instructional equipment resources and how those funds are divvied out. The whole budget allocation process for the district is something that should be revisited at least once every couple of years. I don't know that that's happened yet, and I think it really needs to be looked at given the growth of Clovis Community College and the fact that now Madera is a college and gets an additional $2 million of funding. There's more money in the pot that can be shared. Now, everybody is going to be facing a budget deficit these next few years unless the government passes a bill that will provide additional funding to the state. But absent that, we are looking at a deficit that we're going to have to work our way through. And I would just want to make sure if there are any cuts that they're evenly shared across all of our campuses and the district office. So as the trustee for Area 6, it's important to remember we're representing Clovis Community College and to ensure that our students and our faculty and staff are getting our fair share. At the same time, we are also there to ensure all students in the district needs are being met. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, for your response. Sally, you have the next one.
I would echo Deborah's sentiments around the bond projects. Money is going to become very competitive as we move forward in the state of California for education. And it will behoove all trustees to pull together very closely, work as a team to make sure that projects that have been promised to our community actually come to fruition. And that will mean that there will be some negotiation, if you will, over how funding is going to be spent in the future. It is a concern to me that we continue to work with Clovis Unified and our other districts that feed into Clovis Community College to make sure that our students have a good transition from high school into the community college. The majority of students come from high school directly into our community college system. So those transitions, I believe, are very important for student success, that students understand what those resources upon entering the college level coursework is available to them. Another area for Clovis Community College would be it has a fabulous reputation, but it is probably not very well known. So we would need to develop a plan working with the community college president to make sure that all of the wonderful things that have been happening on that campus get known throughout the Fresno community and the broader Fresno community where students are beginning to come from. And then the other areas I think would just be to make sure that our trustees pull together and make sure that we have a shared and common voice that moves forward to our public.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses. The next question comes from Michelle.
Thank you. I'm one of the instructional faculty at Clovis Community College. And my question for both of you is, what are your thoughts about the Black Lives Matter movement? And how do you think its goals relate to decisions we need to make about equity at the Clovis campus?
Deborah, you have the first response.
I think the Black Lives Matter movement is an important one. And I've been trying to just stress how important I believe diversity, equity, and inclusion is in our nation, in our community college system, and in the State Senate Community College District. In fact, our board just passed a resolution supporting equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion recently. I'm personally working as a trustee on several committees at the trustee level, both at the statewide level and the national level, to ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion is improved at our community colleges. And as the trustee for the State Senate Community College District, particularly Area 6, it's an area that of interest that I have. And as I indicated, one of the things we need to do is increase the diversity of our teaching faculty in our administrative ranks. I think we've done a pretty good job in our administrative ranks. We have a little bit of work to do in our faculty ranks. And part of that is there's a number of different ideas that are out there. One is including faculty from other disciplines to serve on the screening committees, which we do in many cases, but in some cases not enough. To have student voices on the screening committees, because I think that's very important to hear what students think about our potential faculty that are coming in our administrative ranks. We typically, for administrators, have very broad screening committees. That's not as true with faculty. So I think we need to do a better job there. So I'm very supportive of the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement, and believe that now is the time to act. We've been given a charge by our state chancellor, and it's almost more important now to do this quickly. People are tired of waiting, and I don't blame them. As a person of color and a woman, I can understand some of the issues that people are facing and understand why they're in a hurry to get things changed.
Thank you, Deborah, for your response. Sally, you have the next one.
I would agree with what Debbie has said. It is a very important movement, but it really needs to be highlighted in the fact that people need to understand what is being asked for and what is being asked of. So the African American population, for instance, may not be a huge population on the Clovis Community College campus, but that population is growing, and the population of many of our students of color is also growing, and our female population is the larger population on our campuses by 2 or 3%. But it is important to remember that it's more than just a voice of equity and diversity, and it's great to say all of those things. The plans are being put in place by each of our college presidents and working with our student population, I think is going a long way in giving our students an opportunity for voice and presence. But you need to be very clear as to what will be an effective change from that. So in terms of hiring faculty that is like our student populations, yes, we need to continue to move forward with that. But we also need to move forward with that throughout our community college system. The opportunity for students to be able to speak to what it is that they need and what it is that they would like to see needs to be always in the forefront. And I believe that through your student government systems and through your equity and diversity organizations, you'll have an opportunity to hear that student voice and then bring that forward to the Board of Trustees so that actions can be acted upon. Thank you.
Thank you for your responses, candidates. Our next question comes from Keith Ford in the audience, and his question is, more than 50% of Clovis Community College's classes are taught by part-time instructors. These instructors do not have the resources or support to offer students the same caliber of instruction which full-time faculty do. How will you or have you supported our part-time instructors and therefore our students? Deborah, you have the first response.
I think as a board member, part of the instructions we gave to our negotiating team was to do whatever they could to help raise the pay of our adjunct faculty, which was lower than it should have been. I think it's quite a bit better than it was, and I support that. We need to pay our adjunct faculty what we can afford to pay. Now, we cannot afford to pay them the same hourly rate that we're paying our full-time faculty, or we would have to significantly cut the number of classes we offer. There's one pot of money to provide all the things we need to provide at a college. And so you have to weigh things. And I'm always going to come down on what is in the best interest of our students and what can we afford to pay versus what bankrupts us and puts us out of business. So those things need to be balanced. I do believe we need to pay as much as we can absolutely afford to pay our adjunct faculty. I'm very supportive of that. I think even our full-time faculty have been supportive of that, taking less so that we could pay our adjunct faculty more. So I'm very appreciative of their efforts as well. So we will continue to try to do that, to continue to pay the adjunct faculty as much as we can afford to pay them. And if they need teaching resources that they feel they're not getting, they ought to let Dr. Bennett know, because I know she will attempt to provide them with whatever teaching resources they need. And I guess I'll end it with that.
Thank you, Deborah. Sally, you have the next response.
So one of my first questions around pay for adjunct faculty would be, where do we rank in terms of like colleges and in the state? Adjunct faculty is usually how most colleges grow. And so I'm going to assume Clovis Community College is no different than any other college, and the fact that as they grow, they add adjunct faculty. There should be opportunities for that adjunct to become full-time faculty. I agree with Deborah that pay should be competitive, and we should pay our faculty the highest rate that we can pay them based on their value, because without our teachers, our colleges do not exist, obviously, and without students, our colleges do not exist. I do believe that adjunct faculty needs access to professional learning just like our full-time faculty does. And I would support providing them the materials and supplies that they need to be able to teach to the highest extent that they are able to provide the best education for our students that is possible. There's always the question of ratio of full-time to part-time faculty on our community college campuses. And as we value education, we need to value our teachers and value our students. And that means we need to invest in our faculty, both full-time and part-time. Thank you.
Thank you for your responses, candidates. The next question comes from Manny. The ability to establish priorities, especially in a challenging fiscal environment, is critical. How would you approach a realignment of investment opportunities to position the university for success while working with budget challenges? Deborah, you have the first response.
I would follow the budgeting process the campus has developed. They have governance structures in place to ensure that all the campus constituencies have a voice in indicating what they need to be successful. All these requests come to the governance committee on campus that then makes a decision and recommendation to the president on what that budget needs to be. And basically the college's mission sets the priorities for the campus budget. So that should drive everything. And I think the college just reestablished a new mission statement to do that, missions and goals to do that very thing. And so that will be driving their budget and budget priorities. And that's how I would do it. And I think that's how they're doing it.
Thank you, Deborah. Sally, you have the next response.
So I agree that our college campuses each have their set of processes that they follow in order for them to be able to develop their budget and their budget priorities. And then they bring those forward to the Board of Trustees. One area that I think that the Board of Trustees should play a role in is determining how we fund our growth on our campuses. So currently, for instance, we have Oakhurst Center and Madera that are growing at a much slower pace than Clovis Community College is. Obviously, Fresno City College is a big player within our community college district. It has the largest population. Reedley is probably our largest college in terms of acreage, but it is an ag-based college, so that makes sense. But Clovis Community College is probably set to outpace in growth Reedley College, but yet, for instance, Reedley has more staff than Clovis Community College does. So that is the role that, in terms of priority, that I think that our trustees and our chancellor need to have discussions about, so that, for instance, Oakhurst Center, that they have current K-12 declining enrollment. So their enrollment and where the placement of that college is placed, it will be reliant upon the community in order to attend that college. So I don't want to use current dollars to subsidize outgrowth when we still have a college within our system, Clovis Community College, that needs support in order for it to continue to grow. And it continues to grow at a fairly rapid pace. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses. The next question goes to Samantha.
Hi, my name is Samantha. I am the ICC president of ASG at Clovis Community. Why is the trustee position so important to you? Thanks.
Deborah, you have the first response.
Well, I believe the trustees really provide oversight for the district. We're really there as policy makers. We're not there to run the colleges or to run the district or to micromanage. That is not our goal. In fact, trustees have only one employee that reports to us, and that is the chancellor. So as a trustee, it's our job to hold the chancellor accountable for ensuring that the district reaches goals. And those goals include closing the equity gap, ensuring we have a sound fiscal budget, ensuring that our Measure C building capital projects get built, and so on and so on. And so we're really policy level, oversight level, and I believe as a trustee for Area 6, I still have things I need to complete related to our building campaigns and related to our diversity, equity, inclusion implementation strategies. We've got the guidelines out, but a guideline is nothing if you don't implement. And so my next step really is to push our board and push our colleges to implement some of these strategies that come out of the statewide trustee association, and really will be coming out of the statewide steering committee that includes the academic senate, the chief instructional officers, the chief executive officers, the CEOs. So it will be a collaborative document that comes out of there with a number of different strategies, and every district will choose those strategies that work best in their area. What works best in Shasta North is not going to work for us here in the Central Valley. So I still feel that I have much to give back, given my background and experience, and that's why I want to continue serving you.
Thank you, Deborah. Sally, you have the next response.
So the role of a trustee, is about strategic responses, about providing fiscal and financial oversight, ensuring ethical integrity, holding ourselves and our chancellor accountable, conducting, effective organizational planning. But I believe the question was about why did I want to enter this particular race for this for trustee for Area 6, and it really has to do with my experiences within education. I saw firsthand how difficult it was for parents and students to navigate the process to gain access even into the community college, let alone a CSU or a UC. The process of completing a FAFSA, the process of enrolling, of finding courses, of just navigating the systems that are in place. And it really was a call to action for me, that I knew that I had a deep experience with all of this, that I had an experience with aligning programs and with CTE as my background, that I felt compelled that I felt that it was something that our Board of Trustees at the community college level needed. I felt they needed someone with a strong CTE background and who truly understood just how difficult it was to get students from one educational agency into the next level of their education, and the processes that were involved with financial aid. I experienced firsthand sitting with students and with parents, listening to their frustrations, and better understood the effective change that a trustee can have in decision making that allows better access for all students. So that was why I personally wanted to run. Thank you.
Thank you for your responses. The next question goes to Michelle.
Thank you. So we have a pretty diverse student body. Many of our students are non-traditional, so they're returning to school after acquiring life and work experience. So my question is, what structures of support do you think these students need during the pandemic and after?
Deborah, you have the first response.
I suspect, and that was true when I was there. Our students come from a variety of different backgrounds, and I would imagine the college has come up with a variety of different resources to assist our students by providing both laptops and hotspots for our students, as well as providing online tutorial services that are free for our students. I believe we're still providing mental health counseling for our students. I don't believe we're providing childcare now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure of that, but I don't believe so. I believe they're probably closed as well, which can be an issue for our parents who are having to work and study with children right there. But I think the support services we are providing, I believe the college is doing whatever it can to assist students. And if additional resources are needed, those suggestions need to make their way up through your department chairs, to your division deans, to let them know that additional resources are needed and what those resources are, and I think they will be provided. I believe our categorical programs are still functioning quite well, so they're providing services and extra funds for those students who need those categorical services, including DSPS, EOPS, CalWORK, etc. Our Veterans Resource Center was an active part of campus. I suspect they're still providing ongoing service to our students, but as a board member, we're really not getting into the nitty-gritty of specific needs on the campus. That really should go through your campus structures to identify what those needs are. And if they're not being met, then you want to bring them to the board. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, for your response. Sally, you have the next one.
Thank you. I do feel that we have some very traditional and well-established processes and resources that are on our campuses. It really goes back to accessibility. I've seen firsthand that even though resources are available, students quite often don't know what they are. So there needs to be a definite plan for outreach. And that really does fall on the college campuses. It doesn't necessarily fall at the board level, at the trustee level. However, it should be a discussion at the trustee level, because what is working on one campus might be not known on another campus. So we need to make sure that best practices are always put out in the spotlight so that they can be replicated on our campuses. I think that technology is always an issue. I've heard firsthand from parents who are trying to go to school themselves, but yet they have children at home that are also online at the same time, and trying to navigate both a child's education and their own education, I think is overwhelming. I have grandkids that are in my household that come for education, and it's difficult for me to do work and also provide them support. So I can only imagine from a parent's perspective being deeply involved in their own coursework. I think making sure that those resources are well known, that there is actual individual resource student by student, so that they are aware when a student is new to a campus and a returning student, There's always been processes on our college campuses where they have spent time with a counselor and with outreach personnel to make them aware of what those resources are. But it continues to be a problem, and I think that it is highlighted in this time with pandemic as well, simply because they're traditionally done face-to-face, and they would go to a campus to find out what those resources are. So those kinds of things need to be stepped up so that individuals are given opportunity to learn what those resources are. I've looked at the college website. They're all available on that site, but once again, outreach I think would be very important.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses. We have 2 questions left in the audience portion. The next question is from Yeneth, and her question is, as a member of ASG, I am curious to know if you believe that student government is important on a campus. Deborah, you have the first response.
Absolutely. When I was there, we started the first ASG, and Patrick was there as well to get that off the ground, and he's done a fabulous job. ASG is critically important. In fact, one of our first ASG president, that experience, and I'll tell you his name, Mike Carbasi. He is now a city councilman. So he has gone from ASG president to become, of Clovis Community College, to become a city of Fresno councilman. And his experience through ASG really gave him that exposure to politics and spurred his interest. He was going to be a pharmacist, and he ended up going into politics. So ASG is critically important. The student voice is critically important. It is imperative to have student voice in every one of our decision-making governance groups. And for the students that we're doing this. So absolutely, very supportive of ASG.
Thank you, Deborah. Sally, you have the next response.
I agree. I think that student government is of vital importance to the vitality of a community college campus. The fact that student governance turns over on a regular basis is even more important, because that then provides an opportunity for new voices with new perspectives to keep coming in and provide information that the previous group who was in office may not have known about or may not have been affected by. It gives students an opportunity to gain a voice that they would otherwise not have. And a good student government will also make sure that they do enough outreach to hear from the students that they're representing as what they need, where their concerns are, and then have ways to address what those concerns are and involve the students on their campus in what that is. Community colleges have a student population who comes and goes and doesn't necessarily stay on that campus as much as maybe some of the other educational institutions. So student government becomes even more important, because they're the ones who develop and set up the systems with students and for students and by students. So once again, you cannot underestimate the importance of student government in the operation of that college. And I think probably most college presidents would highly agree with me. So thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses. The final question goes to Vaughn Torres.
Hi, my name is Vaughn Torres, and I'm an English and reading instructor at Clovis Community College. And my question is, if elected, how could you advocate for mental health and wellness resources for employees and students at Clovis Community College?
Deborah, you have a first response.
Mental health resources are critically important. In fact, when I was there, we established bringing the psych intern over to our campus to ensure we had psychological services available on our campus. I hired Kelly today because she actually has a license to be a licensed clinical social worker, so that should a crisis arise and our psych intern was not available, Kelly could step in. And I asked her to bring her license and post it in her office just for that purpose, so that we would always have someone on campus who could provide services. I believe mental health services has increased since I've left, and there's additional state funding for that. And our health insurance provides psych counseling for our faculty through EAP, the Employee Assistance Program. Services are available at no cost to the employee. So I'd encourage employees who need that assistance to get it. I'm very supportive of mental health services. It's particularly important during this time of our COVID crisis, when students and faculty and staff are facing even more stress now than prior to, and they had issues, we had issues on campus before COVID hit. So very important service and something we need to continue supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Sally, you have the next response.
I think that mental and behavioral health services are vital for students especially. These are very isolated times, not only for students, but also for faculty. Good to hear that there is a way for faculty to receive mental health and behavioral health services. For students, quite often those services have always been traditionally provided face-to-face. So once again, this is another area in which if a student is not aware of how to access mental health services, they may not have an individual on your campus that they can reach out to. So I think it's important that it be advertised and covered on a regular basis. I have seen where Clovis Community College has been providing information online for students to make them aware of how to access services, which I give kudos to the college president and their faculty and staff to make sure that students are well aware. I think that it has to just become an ingrained part of how we do business on a regular basis, that we remind our students and our faculty of what services are available to them. And we also teach our faculty how to look for signs when students are under duress and in stress, and that we teach our administrative and our faculty, fellow faculty, to look out for each other as well, to make sure that they can become aware of what those services are. Sometimes people don't realize that they're under stress, but we see it within their behaviors and their responses. So that's a good time for us to pull together as a team and support each other to make sure that everyone gets through this time period with the supports that are needed. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses. That concludes the audience portion of the debate. Thank you to the candidates for all their responses and to all the questions from the audience. Candidates, now is the time to give your closing statements. Sally, you have the first statement.
I just wish to thank everyone for this opportunity. I spoke in my opening statement about the power of a question, and some of your questions were quite powerful, and I do appreciate that very much. It was a great opportunity for me to learn from all of you. It's basically based on your questions. I also learned some things from Deborah. She's been in office for a while, so it was a great chance for me to learn from that. I would say that my priorities basically remain the same, that I do feel that the pandemic is a great concern for me. Listening to all of you, it's obviously a concern for everyone else. The need to continue to upskill our current population and make sure that our workforce is prepared for what may come here in our future. And I would just like to say one more time that I am truly guided through collaboration, that having students and faculty and our community be able to access me. My phone number has been accessible in my campaign, and it's become invaluable for me because people have reached out on a regular basis. I spoke to 5 different people this morning as well who had questions for me and wanted to make me aware of some issues that they're dealing with, and wanted to make sure that if elected that I would represent what those issues are. So I would just like to say thank you. This has been a great opportunity for me. And I wish everyone the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Deborah, you have the final closing statement.
Well, ASG, thank you for the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you this evening. You've heard from the two of us today, and I believe I had the track record of commitment to Clovis Community College that I would venture neither of the other candidates has. I am honored to be endorsed by many of the community and business leaders, such as Bill Smith-Camp, Supervisors Nathan Magzig and Sal Quintero, City of Clovis, Mayor Drew Bessinger, Mayor Pro Tem Jose Flores, and Councilmember Vong Motua, and former Clovis Superintendent of Schools Janet Young, including former Fresno State President Dr. John Wilkie. I believe one of the biggest challenges we face today is dealing with the COVID crisis and ensuring our students, staff, and faculty can return to campus in a safe environment. Until we can ensure that everyone will be safe on campus, though, we are just not going to risk your health or the health of our staff and faculty. I've had an opportunity to serve on the board as both the vice chair and the board chair of the District Board of Trustees. I've also had an opportunity to serve as board chair of Clovis Chamber of Commerce and the vice chair of California Health Science University, which produces doctors and pharmacists. I truly believe in the role of community colleges. I have chosen to spend my entire 40-year career working with community college students. Community colleges are the only branch of higher education that can take a non-high school graduate and take them as far as their own abilities and motivation will take them. I truly believe if our colleges provide all the necessary supports to our students, we will help you reach your full potential, and I am committed to ensuring that you have these tools that you need to be successful. You have to do your part, but we will be there right alongside with you, providing you whatever you need. I have always made my decisions, both when I was president and as a trustee, based on what is in the best interest of students. If you do that, you simply cannot go wrong. You can't harm an institution like Clovis Community College, but you can deeply hurt a student if you make the wrong decision. So if you always make that decision that's in the best interest of students, you are not going to go wrong. So again, thank you today. I wish you a safe future, and regardless of who you vote for, please vote. That is the most important thing. And thanks again, ASG, for hosting this. It's really the only format we've had a chance to get our opinions out there. So thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for the statements. That will conclude today's debate. Thank you to the candidates for attending and giving us their time. Can we give them a round of applause, please?
I wanted to thank Sally for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I know Sally from our work together prior to her running. So either way this goes, you're going to be in good hands, I believe.
Thanks, Debbie. I feel the same way.
Thank you. Thank you to the moderators, too, for their questions and time as well. And finally, thank you to the audience for attending and taking an interest in today's event. None of this could have happened without each candidate, the moderators, or the audience. Thank you again, and best of luck to the candidates. And lastly, Election Day is November 3rd. Please vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you, too, to Cole. Great job, Cole. I think we owe him a round of applause.
Just doing my part. I had the easiest part. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you again. And I must say, this is what gives Patrick and I guess, gosh, great delight as serving as advisors to one amazing student government. Both Patrick and I started at community college student governments. Look at us now, and give a major shout out to our student government here. They've just done a phenomenal job to both of the candidates and for everyone coming in to support their work. And we will hopefully see all of you very soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.